Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I surely appreciate you stopping in. If you're a repeat viewer and a repeat supporter of the channel, I surely appreciate you stopping back in, your support throughout the years here. What we are going to do today is we're going to talk about a piece of the puzzle that's very important, but it's one of the pieces that we always make sure that we have other things done before we do these. Today we're talking about buck bedding. So today we're here on the farm here in central Kentucky, guys, here on the home farm. We are getting our the next step of our buck bedding done. Now I've got some of them done already. I've got three I guess here that we need to complete. I was hoping to do is have my mulching done into these pockets here for you, so you could kind of see how they tied back into the point of impact, but we're a little bit behind on scheduling with the mulcher. So we're going to cut them in anyway and go over it with you here on the computer. So like I always say, guys, first and foremost is we don't do these until the doe bedding is done. We don't do these until our habitat pockets are done. I really stress that, going the extra mile to make sure that your does, ladies first, right? Your does are handled, transitions mulched in, some hack and squirt, some getting that habitat, getting that line of travel secure, and your doe beddings placed. Your does bedded, your does bedded in those doe beddings and placed, right? Reason for that is this, guys. If you go in internal, like we've always talked, if you go in internal and build these buck bedding areas first, right, what happens is deer don't know property lines, right? Always remember that. And what happens is the does will take them over, and they're all for none at that point, because it does not, you don't get that, scent checkability that I always speak of past your doe bedding areas. If your doe bedding areas aren't there, what happens is, like we said, the buck or the does take these over because they're habitat correct, and you don't get that full rut effect that you could get if you started with those first. Lock those does in. If you never cut a buck bedding pocket on your farm, guys, you're not doing yourself any harm, because they'll find a spot to slot in. But if you start here with these first, you build them, the does will take them over, and you don't get the full effect. So with that being said, here I'm going to flip you around and show you where I'm at. We're here in the kind of center of the farm here today. Got it ribboned off. We're going to show you here. This is what it looks like around. I've got big cedar. Every one of these, guys, on every property is going to be different. To tell you this is exactly what you need to do in this spot, that spot, it's kind of hard, right? Because I've got I've got cedar, and you might have hardwood, but the path of trying to get you here, educational tool or part of it, right, is the same. What we're going to do, guys, is this section, I'll show you here where we're at. So I've got it marked off with a ribbon. I hang the ribbon or the paint right in the center of these pockets. These pockets are 30 to 50 feet in diameter. I usually go with 50 feet in diameter. 30 feet sometimes doesn't get you the hole in the canopy. What we're doing, guys, is we are perforating the canopy in this spot to make this spot pop out. Where we're at, guys, in reference is right here. We are right here on the farm, so clean access with some switch. You'll see on the top side, and you can see how I do these with these point of impacts. The habitat pocket you see right to the west of where we're at here, we are right here right now. And then this mulch trail, this secure line of travel back out of these buck bedding pockets back out to the point of impact. Very, very important piece of the puzzle. Now you can see this spot is the habitat pocket, which is for overflow does, the does that filter out of or just want to be unsociable from your doe bedding areas, let's say, right? That's the habitat pocket. So you catch all of that overflow movement, you catch all that drama in these habitat pockets. And what this does, guys, then it releases all the pressure out of these more secluded areas. But as you can see, they're all connected back to the point of impact. So this one here is actually to the outside of my transition. And the reason for that is, guys, right along this edge, this whole face of this switchgrass here, is a berm from the previous landowner. It's a berm when they cleared these fields, so it's very secluded. My access is coming in here above it. On the other side, all of that dark yellow with the black around it is all John Comp's HD screening. The yellow is switch, and the blue is my access. So I'm accessing the east side of the ridge and then turning and coming in here into this location on the west for the westerly winds. But kind of that spider effect, if you will, all them trails coming into one spot. And this is how we're building these pockets. So to give you a reference on what it looks like here, is we're in this red cedar, it's, you know, maybe some poplar regeneration. I've got some cherry, flowering dogwood, just not a bunch of anything, right? And it's all silver dollar size or bigger. Anything that's silver dollar size, guys, what we do first and foremost, we have to, you know, get more vegetation in this area that's reachable. So that means, you know, extracting the big trees, and it also means, you know, creating a way that we don't just mess it all up, you know, or make it too messy. So with that being said, this is how we do that. What you do, guys, is the first step is you come in here and you find the center, hence the ribbon, to that 50 to 75 feet diameter pocket, right? So anything over 14 inches, you know, if it's a white oak, you get lucky and there's one there, maybe, if, you know, say 1, 6 is not a good thing, 1 is better, right? In this spot, you know, very seldom you'll find 6 white oaks in one spot, right? So anyway, come in, you take anything over 14 inches, you take it out of the sky, just kill cut it, get it on the ground. If you're in a spot where you can get it, take the log out, that's great, use it for fire, whatever the case is. But just, you know, I say kill cut, so flush cut them, get them on the ground. So right, actually an ash right next to the cedar here, that's smack dab in the center, but that ash is dead. Hence the reason there's just a little bit of sunlight around here, and it's 75 yards from the licking branch. It's 100 yards from your tree stand. That's kind of where you want to place these, right? So you don't get them too far away, still promote daylight movement to them, or by the time they get to your scrapes, it's daylight. You don't want them 200 yards away, unless it's, you know, an area where you feel like you're, you know, you're pushing the envelope, getting into those with noise. I try to place them at that 100-yard mark. So back to the build part of it, right? We come in here, you cut any of that stuff that's 14 inches or bigger, you cut it out, get it on the ground, cedars included. That releases the canopy. So that's the first thing I look at. I look at the trees, what I'm gonna have to cut down. Before you do that though, guys, you have to take a look at your ground, as far as what you have on the ground. Is there going to be a need for any hinge cutting now or in the future? Anything in these pockets, guys, that are silver dollar size or bigger aren't doing you any good. They're just making a second or possibly third canopy, right? So it's really choking off all of the good vegetation on the ground. So what I do, guys, is I come in, I look at these, and what I'll do is I'll take these, I will take these, anything silver dollar size or smaller, you know, in that range, that lower brush, if you will. I'll cut it down, most of it down, probably 50% of it out, and I just strategically make like rabbit habitat pockets out of it. I'll show you guys, and I've showed you this before on a habitat pocket, but similar with the doe bedding and buck bedding, you do the same thing, right? Take these smaller trees out, pile them in like, you know, 6 foot wide rabbit habitat pockets. You pile all the brush down one way, then you flip it the next layer, and then you just keep rotating that. For you know what, you make, you know, great little pockets, and I'll show you what it looks like after I get it done. Then I go to looking at those big trees, and the reason I do that is, you know, sometimes you put the big trees down first. It's hard to get in the tops and stuff like that to get those done. So if you do have any of that smaller stuff, take that out first, make some rabbit habitat out of it. You know, the next one you get to might be all big timber. You don't have any brush, hence the reason we're putting daylight there, right? So I've got some of that rabbit habitat creation to do. Point, one of the cool the spots to touch on here, guys, is anytime you have a rub, flipper, I've got a rub right here just outside, you know, right there ahead of us, just 5 yards in front of me. That's all signpost smell. That's why he's here. I've already got bucks bedding in this spot. Just gonna make it better for them. Leave those, don't cut them down. Don't cut them down and add that to your rabbit habitat piles. Then, like I said, guys, is this big cedar's coming down. It's too big right now, thermal cover. It's got a lot of top protection, doesn't have a lot of side protection. It's not doing the deer any good, and it's going to let a boatload of sunlight in. So take this cedar out. I'm going to take all these bigger ones out first that are in here. So I've got three cedars, I guess, to come out. So if yours were hardwood, you kill cut them and you get them on the ground. Anything over 14 inches, get it out of the sky. Then what I do is if you do have some of that 6-8 inch stuff that you could use for hinging, what I do is I go all the way around the perimeter of that spot, and I tip those hinge cuts out to the outside. So maybe 4 or 5, 6 trees of the outside, making sure that they're all away from the interior. Tip them to the outside. Then what I do is I take a look on the inside. Maybe I've got 3 or 4 other hinges that can be tipped in. Biggest deal is, though, don't tip trees across that corridor, that buck bedding corridor that goes back out to your licking branch, to your stand location. Make sure that you don't shut that off. Most of the time in these guys, you'll find these bucks like to bed on the outsides, not the inside. Does will pile right on the inside of creation, right? They like to be buried in stuff and underneath canopy and stuff like that. Bucks don't like that, especially if it's a velvet situation, right? So try not to block that shut the door on them. Like I say, don't slam the door on them getting back out. So how much do you hinge? If you are a hinge cut candidate, this is what you do. Take a survey, and you only hinge about 50% of what you've got in that 50 to 75 feet pocket. Don't hinge all of it, because what happens is, if you hinge all of it, 1, it's probably going to make a tornado mess. 2, when those hinges die in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, 8 years, depending on what the species is and what your ground allows, right? If you're in heavier ground, they'll last longer. If you're in sandy soil, loam, then they'll die quicker. But if you cut them or hinge them all, those die, you don't have anything to replace them with. So always err on the side of caution. Hinge cut about 50%, and then you'll always have something. 6 years comes in, those hinges die, you come in, make rabbit habitat pockets out of those, or piles out of those, hinge the new ones down. That's how you maintain it. Now you can come in if you can control it in this area, because these areas are internal. A lot of times you don't have fire breaks. Very cautious, but you can burn these areas, and get some regeneration in, and then that's how you maintain them for years to come. And we're going to get to cutting here. A spot like these guys might only take half hour with a chainsaw work, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. All right, guys, a couple minutes with a saw, and this one here is all done. So I had this log here. First of all, I'll show you. This is that entrance. This is what I'm talking about. Don't block this, trail off this corridor. Back to this will be mulch, but it's going to be right back out. Or you can hand cut these out too, guys. You can almost see away in a distance, see the opening there. That's the licking branch down there. So I'm about 75 yards in here, 100 yards from the stand. This will be mulched all the way through. Anything on here that you can tip to the outside, once this is mulched, you can hinge on these sides, guys. You can kill cut. Just remember, and or kill cut, just remember, when that stands up here and this starts sliding through, do not hinge cut too close. So I would keep it 50 yards at least, so maybe 25 yards out of the mouth of this, then just mulch this trail through here, depending on your density. If you need more structure, you can hinge cut or kill cut to the outside as well. Flare everything here, flare everything outside. But remember, don't hinge cut too close to that stand. Hinge cut, you're promoting bedding. It does make your corridor stand out good and loud, right? But you can get some bedding potential there. It's too close to the stand, you're going to get nailed. So what you could do is, go through here and hinge these on that side, because my access is in here from above it into the stand location out there, 100 yards from here. And you could hinge this side of it, so you're not putting hinges on that side. Maybe you just kill cut to really form it. That's why I mulch it, though, is when you mulch through the density that I've got here in the farm, you mulch this through, and you've got this nice secure line of travel. It's the path of least resistance, but it's dense on both sides. And so always remember that. So this will be mulched out. We get to this tree, though, here, guys. This tree was dead. All just ash here was, falling across this hole. I just lopped it out, so when we get this mulch, we'll come right in here and we'll just deadhead that right into the center of this pocket. And you can see now, guys, big hole, big canopy release. So 3 cedars. One had a similar base, so 3 cedars. I'm just leaving this kind of snag here for just woodpecker habitat, I guess is what you'd call it, right? But now you can see everything is released. I made some brush pile here. This brush pile is just lopsided of the center. A lot of the stuff, actually after I started cutting, is at head height in here still, so I didn't have to do a lot of trimming. I just wanted this spot to stand out with no canopy and get some more of this good vegetation growing. You can see I left that rub right here. There's another one just on the back side of it right there. So this is where he was wanting to, and I know which buck this is that beds up in here. He was wanting to bed up in here anyway, guys, and this is a long-term goal, right? Poke this daylight in here, this area will be correct, and all this vegetation is good, reachable at his head. I got some honeysuckle right there, and yeah. So in these areas, guys, when you get them cleaned out like this, let's say the canopy released, you could go through and hinge cut if your pocket needs hinge cutting. Mine doesn't, because there's a bunch of stuff in here that's already habitat correct, right? I just needed more sun for long term. So I took some of the silver dollar size stuff out, right, and made a pile. Other than that, I just removed I need to make sure that try to get those on the ground as much as I can. So I'll cut a stick out of that so that cedar falls down flat on the ground. But canopy release, making room for your new hinges if you're a hinge cut candidate. And then, like I said, the other piece of the puzzle is when you burn, instead of burning 5 to 10 acres at a time, which we're going to talk about, a piece of the puzzle with your doe bedding and stuff. Remember, guys, only burn in strategic areas. That way you can really make those spots pop out. What I always use as kind of a reference, if I would have flown you over this before I did this with a drone, this would have all been a monoculture. Then you fly over this with the drone after, this pocket's going to stand out. And if that pocket stands out from above, it definitely stands out on the ground, and you create edge and correct habitat. Then you tie it together with a secured line of travel, mulch trail right back out to that point of impact at the stand, and creates quite the vacuum to one location. Correct habitat in strategic areas for bedding. So it just goes to show, the ones that concern me is when folks say we're making buck bedding internal to the property, and we hinge cut 2 acres. That really concerns me, because what that means to me, if you already know it's internal to the property, you shouldn't be hinge cutting in that large of volumes to begin with. It should, that size, acre or 2 acres, let's say, of an area, should be what you're hinge cutting closer to your bedding, or closer to your food sources for your doe bedding. So remember, even at 2 acres, you don't hinge cut everything in there, because it's too much, right? It's too much on the ground. It's too much of a tornado effect. So err on the side of caution. Start with 50%, then gauge it. If you need a little bit more, add a little bit more. It's so species specific, though, guys. It's hard to say, okay, this is what you do on all buck bedding and this is what you do on all doe bedding. It doesn't work that way, right? I wish it did, because it'd be easier for you guys, it'd be easier for me, right? But it doesn't work that way. So always remember, you're looking to get the sunlight to the floor. If you've got canopy, release the big canopy. If you've got a double canopy, it's over silver dollar size, they can reach it if they stand on their feet, but it's not easy, right? So what we do is, you can just see just the coloration of the video that we're doing here, guys, before, kind of dark and shaded in here, right? And it's kind of an overcast day anyway. 3 trees out, bang, pocket, all the vegetation right here. As a closing point here, remember this, guys, on your buck bedding creations. On your buck bedding creations, remember this. If you are going to build these internal of the property, off from the points of impact, and you're going to bring them in, don't build them unless you're going to connect them with a cut trail or a mulch trail back to your point of impact. And the reason for that is, guys, is when he's bedded in here in the evening, let's say, or the afternoon, and if that's an afternoon stand, this one just happens to be a AM, but if you're there and he's got 365 degrees of an option out of these pockets which way to go, because he's not boxed in here, he's got plenty of outs, right? And he can go anywhere. He's going to take what's naturally habitat correct out of Dodge, and he's going to go hopefully do a transition, or hopefully do a promoted line of travel, edge of some sort, correct habitat. He's going to go out. What you want to do is you want to make his mind up for him. When he leaves these secluded areas, he knows that that information is waiting for him at that licking branch, and this is the most secure line of travel back to the point of impact. And if you can get that created, it's shocking how much, when in the morning, that licking branch is the last place they stop, before they come to bed. In the evening, it's the first place they stop when they leave here. If you can get that routine set, guys, we make very predictable movement. Then you just have to get the weather and the wind right and the thermals and go in and make it happen. So thanks for joining me on this one, guys. Another episode of Built by Whitetails, and we're getting the buck bedding done here on the farm here in central Kentucky.